So, how'd you do on that test today? Probably an A is just not good enough.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what I made.
Do you want to finish out in the top of your class? I just don't understand, Kendall. Why is it not that important to you?
I'll be valedictorian, Mom. I promise.
Kendall, if you don't do better, you'll never be anything even above 50%. Valedictorian, you made it.
Told you I would.
Yeah, but you know, Kendall, college is a lot harder than high school. You're going to have to try really, really hard, son.
Yeah, I know, Mom.
Prove me wrong. Go out there and do it.
I will. I'll prove you wrong, Mom.
How's it going?
Hey.
You want to come to a party tonight?
Heck yeah!
Sweet. It's actually at the Wesley tonight, 8 o'clock. Yeah, I've got a flyer if you want, man.
No, you know, don't worry about it. I don't really like Christians that much.
Oh, okay. No harm. Is there a particular reason why? How about this? My name's Wingo.
Hey, dude. No, nothing against you, man. Just the hypocrisy of the whole religion.
Well, I hope I didn't offend you by saying anything like that at all.
No, I mean, like I said, it's nothing against you, man, but I just can't understand how you believe in those fairy tales. And not you as a person, but just as a whole. Just the fairy tales, I don't understand it.
Well, how do you mean?
I mean, in the Bible, you've got giants, angels, demons. All that is just rubbish. It just seems like intellectual suicide.
Well, I don't know if you call it intellectual suicide. I mean, the Bible has withstood centuries of people trying to disprove it. I mean, it's been burned, banished, thrown out of everything, and it's stood up.
I mean, I can't think of a way that would be anything other than intellectual suicide.
You know, what's crazy is I actually know where you're coming from. When I came to college a couple years back, when I was a freshman, me and my roommate were actually atheists. And we would read through it and try to disprove it, and eventually it started to hold up against everything we'd throw at it. It was crazy, and so we became believers out of that.
Well, dude, if you would have had me on your team, we would have disproved it. Because, dude, in Numbers 31:7, it talks about how they just wiped out women and children. And you find it all the way through Deuteronomy. In Joshua, he just takes out total crowds of people in Jericho. Massacres them. Man, I'm just going to stay with Marx on this one, because it's just opium for the masses, dude.
What's opium for the masses?
Just the whole religion, like the Old Testament and everything.
Oh, man, that was the Old Testament.
Yeah, well, in the Old Testament, okay, well, why don't you just read the New Testament then?
The Old Testament, I mean, it's part of the story, man.
Because God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You have to look at the Old Testament to understand the New Testament. It refers back to it a dozen times. If you read that, you'd see it.
Well, then he can't change his mind, right? Because if he's in the same in the Old Testament and the New Testament, he's a sadistic murderer, man. Leave me the heck out of it.
Dude, murderer? No, he died to save us. How is that a murderer?
All I know is Christians say they love God and they follow the Bible, but they're just like me, man. They're out Saturday night drinking, picking up ladies, all the same things, and all I can think of is on Sunday morning, they're sitting in those exact pews being hypocrites. He's like, they're no different than me, and they say, I'm going to hell? It's just hypocrisy, man. Religion has done nothing but hurt people. Genocide, oppression of women, slavery. If I could find one real Christian, I may change my mind, but until then, man, I'm out.
Man, I'm sorry you feel that way. I just want you to know that I respect you and your opinions. And
You respect my opinions?
Yeah. We're definitely not perfect.
You guys are nowhere close.
Nowhere close to being perfect. And I know that we can be wrong sometimes.
Wow. You know what? I've never actually heard a Christian say that. Admitting you might be wrong is a huge thing.
Admitting that we could all be wrong. How about you?
Okay, I say we were going with this crazy Christian man, but I guess I could be wrong. There's just no empirical evidence to believe in your 21st century Judeo-Christian American God. But I could be wrong. But I'm probably not.
Well, I guess I'll take that. It was nice to meet you,
Kendall.
Wingo.
Nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, so do you know where actually some real parties are?
Right here, baby. All day.
Figured you'd say that. See you later, dude.
See you, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hey, dude. Yeah. Dude, I heard there was some crazy parties going on tonight. Yeah. Like with the fraternities and stuff? Yeah. Dude, yeah, we don't have class till Monday, so dude, let's live it up. Yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm pretty hungry. No, the caf doesn't open until later. Dude, yeah, pizza's a good idea. I don't know the number here. Oh, my roommate has a computer. I'll just look it up on his. Oh, crap, dude. Dude, my roommate's a perv. No, dude, you'll never believe it. I unlocked his screen and there's some porn on this, dude. Yeah, he's a perv, man. Dude, that'd be so funny if we were eating pizza over here watching porn. Yeah, you're totally right. That'd be way awkward. Yeah. Yeah, let's just see it for real tonight. Yeah, dude. Just go ahead on and come over, all right? Hey, my roommate's here. I'll just see you later, man. I'll just... You know what, dude? Just forget about it. Yeah, just forget about it. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you later.
Strike two for Wingo. These are characters, by the way, not the real thing. So now he's got a girl pregnant and he's going to leave her. And on the same day, his roommate catches him looking at porn while also witnessing to him at the same time. So here we have this porn-addicted Christian on one side, and we have this militant atheist on the other. Seems to know a whole lot more about the Bible than the Christian does even. And these two sides are both looking for truth, or they're putting forth truth claims. And the question is, where is God in all of this? So which one is right? Even my daughter asked that. She's like, Dad, we think we're right, and then, the Muslims, they think they're right, and the Hindus think they're right. So who's actually right? It's a good question, amen? I said, I'll tell you why, and later. This is a quote from evilbible.com under the title, Christians Are Hypocrites. Christians, they love to talk about how loving and dutiful and compassionate they are, yet I've yet to meet one who does not practice hypocrisy to the highest degree. Their willful ignorance of the Bible combined with their two-faced idealism to preach it has made us all sick, hasn't it? Christians practice what can only be described as selective morality. Sorry, dude. Sorry that we hurt your feelings. But this is sometimes, how many of you guys have heard something similar to this? I couldn't go to the church because there's too many hypocrites there. Anybody ever heard that before? Yeah. Old friend of mine said, that's great. That's why I'm inviting you, because I thought you'd fit right in. Reason why? Because you're human, and every human wrestles with this very thing, saying one thing, doing another, and that's a part of the human condition that we try to fight against. And Wingo said this, we're not perfect. He's like, of course you're not. You're way far from it. True, all humans are. We need a Savior, every dang one of us. Amen? So where's God in all this? This scene we just witnessed between Wingo and Kendall, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't just one day, Kendall's mad at Christians, and one day, Wingo finds himself stuck in this porn trap. With Wingo, he seems to have this heartfelt desire to follow God, but we know he's got some serious issues. And with Kendall, on the other hand, there's a series of hurts and there's a series of pains. It's stuff going back into his family tree. And somewhere, he embraced this type of intellectualism, which is this belief that finding the highest intellectual insight brings value and validity and purpose in life, and I'm never going to be dumb, and I'm never going to be on bottom, and if I'm always outsmarting other people, I'm worth more, and my brain is where I find my value, where other people find their value in their strength or in their social skills or in their football skills or the sporting skills or whatever. Some people find their value in their brain. And some in their singing. We find our value in all these different places, which we misplace when we put it in anything but Christ. And all of this stuff, all these things, trying to prove his mom wrong, led him to this moment. And they converge in this parking lot at the Wesley like a bomb. And Wingo has no idea. He's just inviting this guy to a party, and boom, it just explodes on him. And he's just reeling back saying, okay, what do I do here? And he actually does a pretty good job. What happened to Kendall to make him so passionate about his atheistic position? Let's break down the conversation a little bit. Kendall says that he can't handle hypocrisy of the whole religion. He says, how can a college student believe in fairy tales. That's intellectual suicide. Has anybody ever heard those words before? Now, thank you. One person talks to atheists. That's great. No, I'm just joking. Listen, my brother, who is 5 years older than me, was this type of Kindle militant atheist type guy. And man, when I became a Christian, I had to start knowing my crap, because he was going to pound me down, make me feel so stupid and worthless or whatever, until I figured it out. So I hid it from him for a long time. He moved off to college, and I hid it. And one day I knew I had to stand up and tell him. And I knew he was so disappointed. I used to really want to make him happy. I used to really want to, be cool enough to be alongside him and everything. And that's whenever we kind of started our split. Maybe it's like he said, Karl Marx, who would call it the opium for the masses. Are you weak-minded? Aren't Christians just weak-minded and just lower because they have to believe in something, because if there's nothing out there, then they're not safe or something like that? Is it intellectual suicide to believe in God, to believe in the Christian God of the Bible? What is Kendall saying? Basically, he's saying to believe in something that is non-observable according to the scientific method, that is intellectual suicide. To Kendall's character, to believe in God would be like believing in that a street magician was actually working supernatural magic. That's what he thinks of. He's like, the Easter Bunny. Oh, some blue iguana in the sky. That's what God is. I'm really not trying to be rude or hateful here tonight. I hope, especially if you're not a believer tonight, I hope you hear my heartbeat here. I love discourse. I love dialogue. Some people get crazy. And these days, you can't really have a good debate, because everybody goes into like either straw man arguments or red herrings, or don't worry if you don't know what that is, or they go into just sucker punches. And it's just like, that's not what we're talking. Don't make this personal. We're just talking, we're putting ideas on. That's what the scientific method is, right? You set something up and you throw everything at your hypothesis, hoping to knock it down. And if it stands, then maybe it's something true. Then you got a theory on your hand, right? So I'm not trying to be rude here at all. My goal is to follow the science to true reality, and I believe true science, open-minded science, actually leads to the Creator. I believe that. If you don't believe me, then just hang with me, and then we'll talk afterward, and it'll be great. I give the utmost respect to people who devote their lives to finding truth and studying the nuances of the universe. Scientists have put a lot of hard time and work and effort into this, so I don't want to undermine that at all. I merely have to ask this question: are you so sure that you aren't living in faith as well? According to my book that they really hate, even the title, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. That is what I am going to postulate today, that it takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to believe in a creator. And if you don't believe me, just hang on and write down notes, and we'll talk. We'll talk and bring your observations to me afterward. And don't get mad. I'm just asking to make an objective observation. Be open-minded. So I wish I had time to go through the deep weeds. Man, there's so much that we could cover. I mean, there's so many different nuances to this whole the depths of all this. A lot of it you can find on Ravi Zacharias, or RZIM. Anything by Ravi is good. Again, we got this, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. We got Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell here. It's a great book. Case for Christ and The Case for Faith, Case for the Creator, all by Lee Strobel, who was a former atheist, who was a journalist who, through trying to prove it wrong, actually felt like he proved it right. The Truth Project is by Del Tackett, and is Genesis History. This is something that's on Netflix that I really want you to maybe consider taking some time to watch, is Genesis History. I wish I had time to go through this, and it goes through the whole, he interviews a lot of top shelf scientists to talk about, to walk through Genesis. Also, Truth Project, Expelled, and Ravi Zacharias. Okay, so let's dive into the gray in our search for truth tonight. Kendall calls the Bible a bunch of fairy tales and he ascribes to the scientific community as his source of truth. What is the scientific community? Does anybody got a good handle on what the scientific community is? You've heard that phrase, right? The scientific community says. it's, for our purposes tonight, it's a diverse network of scientists. These are researchers, these are professors, these are university presidents, these are Nobel Peace Prize winners. These are people mainly on universities who do a lot of research projects that really advance the scientific field. They're supposed to be objective and use a scientific method, and peer review is one of their ways of keeping them in balance to make sure that they're not getting off the tracks. So they publish something in a peer-reviewed journal, and other people try to test it or try to replicate it, and if it's unreplicatable, then it's not, it kind of goes down on the list. I'm down with that. Anybody down with that? All right, good. But I also want to postulate that the scientific community is not infallible. Nobody said they were, but it kind of seems like they do. Amen? They are treated as if you cannot question the scientific community, this whatever, the Borg, this big amalgamous just blob of scientists that you can't disagree with them. And in our survey, let's look at our survey tonight. We had 86 responses, pretty good cross-section of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and alumni, and one graduate student. 97% of those who took the survey, so that'd be most of them, most of you guys are Christians, said, yes, I am a Christian, the blue. 90%, basically, 90% marked a pretty high view of the Bible being the main source of truth, many of you guys being on the number 10, that the Bible is our top source of truth. However, over a quarter of you guys believe that neo-Darwinian evolution is actually a thing. That's the yellow and the blue. And 73% said no, but over 25% said, yeah, that's a thing. I get it. 70% marked a general high trust in the scientific community. I'm talking like 6 and above. A pretty big, I mean, in the scientific community, think about it. I mean, if you want to go down to a lower rung of this, we're talking about, doctors. We're talking about the doctors you go to, and you trust them to give you the right medicine that's been researched by some amalgamous big blob of scientists, right? And you're trusting that they have tested these things up against other products and tested it to make sure that it's a good thing, and it's gone through the FDA. All that stuff is a part of the scientific community. So that's good. But how do you get to be a part of this thing? Through these publishing of peer review articles. But I want you to imagine a high school, right? And back in the day, all the cool kids were the Christian scientists, and they were they were the cool kids. Like, yeah, let's party. Well, somewhere along the line, the cool kids are no longer the Christians anymore. And so if you want to publish anything, if you want to do anything in the scientific community, you better keep your creationist stuff to yourself. No intelligence allowed. Intelligence, yeah, intelligent design. You got to keep that to yourself. No intelligence allowed. If you try to you're blackballed. Right? So you just kind of keep to yourself. If you're like the not cool kid, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I'm going to hide my WWJD bracelet and just go to science class and pretend like. And the cool kid's like, dude, God's not cool. He's not real. You got to be an idiot to believe in God. Well, that's one side of it. And you can't be one of the cool kids unless you join their mob mentality. If you don't believe me, do a little bit of research. You'll see it. On the other hand, there's another side of the scientific community which in our information age is so weird, but it's where, okay, so in one episode of Adam Ruins Everything, you may have seen this, Adam pays $300 and he gets the script of the show into a scientific journal. We're basically saying camera A, point this way, camera B, point that way. And the picture, you can actually go look this up. It's the possible irritating effects of nutritional facts. It's irritating that there's facts in nutrition, and then they put the script of the show in there. I went to this website. This is actually a screenshot from my computer, and it was taken down, but the name is still there. The possible irritating effects of nutritional facts. Once it aired on the show, of course, these people took it down. And there's a lot of reasons why people would do this, but there's a bunch of fake news out there, right? And so there's all these journals that are popping up saying, yeah, we're a scientific journal. It's like, what's it been peer-reviewed? Yeah, it's in this journal, and this journal. Who knows what those journals are? There's some of them that are really good and some of them that are really bad. So when you say the scientific community, a lot of times we got to talk about which side are we talking about, who are we talking about, and how is it? Because it's not as simple as all that, and yet we just, oh, well, yeah, shoot, because science. Someone say, because science. Well, what do you mean God doesn't exist? Well, because science. Oh, well, yeah, science. They are the high priests of our day, the religion of science. I believe in science. Carl Sagan. Anybody know who Carl Sagan is? One of the more popular voices back from the 70s up till today. Popular voices in astronomy, cosmology, and atheism. He said this. He says, we wish to pursue the truth no matter where it leads. Unless it leads to God, because there's no freaking way we're going to let God have the reins again. We're not going to do it. Oxford's definition of the scientific method or science. The systematic study, I don't want to lose you guys. Man, you guys are going to have to hold. Someone say we're going somewhere. We're going somewhere. The systematic study of structure and behavior of the what? And the world through and experimentation. So we're talking mainly about the physical and the natural world, though it's crossing over these days into philosophy, I would say. And they're trying to answer some big things like where do we come from and all that kind of thing through science, which is, it's interesting, but it's crossing over. We have to be honest, it's not just science anymore now, it's philosophy as well. And it all starts, and we're going to skip down a little bit if you guys are back at the computer back there. It all starts with this philosophical question, where did it all begin? See, we can start science, once we got a single-cell organism, we can start figuring out some things about that. But the problem is, where did it all begin? And there's three prominent truth claims here. One, the biblical truth claim, the Orthodox truth claim from the beginning of basically 2,000 years ago and before, which says that God created the heavens and the earth. The second one is the Neo-Darwinian truth claim, that says it's basically a spontaneous generation, meaning that there was that boom, it just happened, and that life came from a single-celled organism. The third one is a deistic or a theistic evolution theory, which says that basically God guided evolution. I don't got time to go into that one. We're going to hit the first two, and because gosh, we could be here all night, and we're only talking about one thing tonight. There's so many ways we could go. So let's dive in here. The biblical truth claim, God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The Bible says that we believe it. Christians do. But for some reason, that's not good enough for science, but that is our science. So Psalms 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim. That's your peer review right there. And the work of his hands. You look at creation and you see the handiwork of God. Verse 2, day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. You go up into the mountains and you just say, wow. Most people are drawn to it and they're like, what? There has to be a God. But Romans 1 says this is the other side of things that happen. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, the things we couldn't see about him, his eternal power, even his divine nature, all of that have been clearly seen. Where? I can't see God. They've been clearly seen and being understood from what has been made. The painting. When you see a painting, no one says, I wonder if that just developed over millions of years. I wonder if just the colors just happen to smash into each other from some explosion far off in space and make the Sistine Chapel. No, you know that a painting is evidence of a painter. Verse 21, but although they knew God, these people in the very beginning, they did not glorify him as God. They did not give thanks to him as God. But their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. And Psalms 53:1 says, it is the fool that says in his heart that there is no God. There is no God. It's foolish. So that's the biblical truth claim. Now the second truth claim is the Neo-Darwinian truth claim of spontaneous generation, that either there was a transcendent creator who created the universe or the cosmos created itself from nothing. Spontaneous generation. You can just say, everybody say spontaneous generation. I'm going to be using a lot of big words today, so just hang with me. I'll be posting my notes on the Facebook page later tonight. Does Darwinism actually match reality, though? Let's take a look. Popular science seems to think so. You do not question Darwinism. You don't question it. If you do, you're laughed out of the room. You're seen as an idiot. Sir Julian Huxley said, Darwin's theory is no longer theory, it is a fact. They don't say law, that's too big of a statement, but it's fact. Might as well be a law. Richard Dawkins, you guys know him, it's absolutely safe to say that if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane, or wicked, but I'd rather not consider that one. Richard Bosworth, American atheist, says, evolution destroys utterly finally, the very reason for Jesus' earthly life. Destroy Adam and Eve and original sin, and in the rubble you will find the sorry remains of the Son of God. And if Jesus was not the Redeemer who dies for our sins, then Christianity is nothing. That's why it's a big deal. Oh, it kind of goes together. I can see how it goes together. It doesn't go together. There's a truth claim that the Bible lays out there. God created the heavens and the earth. And there's another that says, no, he didn't. It just came out of a big bang. Carl Sagan, back to him, he said this, though, and this is where we're going to go tonight. Evolution is a fact amply demonstrated. It's plentifully. It has been demonstrated by the fossil record. Someone say fossil record. And by contemporary molecular biology. So those are the two things we're going to look at tonight. The fossil, we're going to say, Carl, all right, let's look at the fossil record. Let's look at molecular biology. Let's see what it says. Let's start with molecular biology. Darwin himself said this: if it could be demonstrated that any complex organism existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications. Or you guys, I already lost you. Okay, so let's, he says, my theory would absolutely break down. What he's saying here is that this is what we call Darwin's tree of life. Starts with one single-celled organism, right? From this one single-cell amoeba or whatever, it branches out into every kind of creature. You got monkeys, you've got rats, you've got sponges, you've got sea things, you got all kinds of stuff. You got star stuff. No. And then you've got all these adaptations, all kinds of different kinds of birds and all kinds of things like that just break off. So, but it all comes from one thing. And to do that, if this is your timeline, you've got like billions and billions and billions, or millions at least, of years to get here where we see all these different species that are up here. Those of you guys in biology, did I get that right? Okay. That's called, I did too. I did my research. Try me. This is Darwin's tree of life and the origin of the species. This was his main thesis. But he said that you would see numerous successive, over time, you'd see successive little changes that would branch this way. You'd see millions of them so that you could get up here where we got humans and then you got like dogs, right? But there'd be millions of things in between there. So he said if you couldn't find that in the fossil record, then my theory would completely break down. He said that about his own work. Okay, so Lee Strobel, he says this: even though Darwin's Tree of Life is published in virtually every biology textbook that's ever been over the last 50 years, contrary to what we've been told, there is actually no conclusive evidence of this. We're going to talk about that. In Darwin's time, scientists thought that cells were these basic globs, right? So the cells were these basic globs. After 1953, with the discovery of DNA and the informational properties and complexities of just DNA, we started to see that the cell wasn't just a blob, but it was a highly complex machine with machines within machines. If just Google phylum, just do that. And not right now, but do that one time. You'll see the motors and all the things working within the cell, and then you see inside the DNA strands all the information that's there, and then all of a sudden we start to see something different. Actually, got one of the co-founders of DNA, Dr. Francis Crick. said that just the information needed to make this one single-celled organism, this amoeba, just the information needed to make the single-cell amoeba would fill 1,000 sets of Encyclopedia Britannicas, 1,000 sets of them just to get the information into one cell. That's just one cell. He becomes convinced that it would not be, now he's an atheist, would not be possible without a designer. And this is what he said: the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions that would have to be satisfied for just that one cell. It's too impossible to think that it just happened. So did he become a creationist? Did he become a believer in God? No. He postulates a thing called directed panspermia. Directed panspermia. Someone say panspermia. Directed panspermia, which means basically, it could not have. It's impossible for this thing to happen. So therefore, an alien had to bring it to our planet. That's great, but who created the alien? Where did the alien come from? Well, some other alien. Well, then where did that one come from? Where did the uncaused cause come from? Cosmological argument in philosophy. Look it up later. Well, that's so dumb. You'd use the cause. It's so old. And the idea of evolutionist is check this out. So this is the evolutionist idea. Time, this way, right? Smart, this way. This is evolution. We were stupid. We became monkeys eventually. And then now we're getting smarter and smarter. And if we keep going up, we will solve all the issues of life. We will hit some type of conscious nirvana of some kind. This is God's view. This is the creationist view. Man was created good, very good. Adam was a top-level thinker. He could name every phylum that there was at the time. And that somewhere we had a fall. And then we've probably done this a few times, a few dark ages, and now we're kind of trying to maybe climb up out of it. That's a creationist view. So anything that's old is bad, and anything that's new is good. That's the evolutionist. That's like the end being of the evolutionist point of view. Cooper, could you go find the bag that the computer was in? I think it's against that wall over there or something like that, the computer back there. I need my mouse trap. It's back there somewhere. Someone say directed panspermia. It means it comes from somewhere else. It's some alien that brought that first cell, and then it kind of did its own thing here. So we're going to look through the microscope now. Scientist Michael Behe introduced the theory of irreducible complexity. Someone say irreducible complexity. There we go. How many of you guys already knew that one? 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. Yeah, because I read it to you earlier. Okay, the idea of irreducible complexity, he uses a mousetrap as his theory, and he says there's several things. This is a very, very simple machine. But you think about it. You've got a spring here. You've got the dinner plate. You've got, this thing. You got the staple that holds it in place. But if there was any one of these things that was out of place, if the spring wasn't, if this thing wasn't there to hold the snappy thing, that's I'm just going to set this and toss it in the audience. No, but if there was one thing that wasn't working on this trap, it wouldn't work, right? And what Michael Behe is saying is that the cell is irreducibly complex. This is what he said. Applying Darwin's test to the ultra-complex world of molecular machinery, we're talking about some high-tech stuff going on down there. Steve Jobs couldn't even dream of what's going on in the human cell. And the cellular systems that have been discovered over the past 40 years, we can say that Darwin's theory has absolutely broken down. That's a scientist there for us. William Paley, they hate this one, by the way, but William Paley did the clockmaker analogy. And it's his teleological argument for design. And basically he said that if you're walking through a forest and you happen to kick something and it sounds jingly and it's metal and you pick it up and there's little gears in it, and you open it up and there's like this thing, and over time you start to see that it's in keeping with the direction of the sun at the same time every day, you would start to think, wow, I bet what happened was an explosion happened, and then these gears that seem to be timed just perfectly just arranged themselves, and somehow this is in keeping magically with, I think that's actually more faith in magic than if it was as if somebody had designed it. What he's saying is that if the mousetrap is that complex and it's so simple, a cell is so much more complex, and therefore it's irreducibly complex. Paley calls that the Swiss watch or the clockmaker. So that's looking down into the very minute thing of the DNA. Now let's use a telescope. Let's look out into space. This leads us to anthropic principles. Have anybody ever heard the word anthropology? Anthropology is the study of humanity. Anthropic constants or anthropic principles are the principles that are required for human life to exist on Earth. Now imagine there's like a wall of like a million like dials, and you have to get it dialed in just right for that combination to work for human life to exist. Now, if you watch Star Trek, anybody watch Star Trek? No? Okay, that's cool. Oh, 2 people, that's great. Every week they end up on a new Class M planet. A Class M planet is one where we could just breathe without a spacesuit. It would seem that Class M planets are just everywhere. And just in the back of your mind, your subconscious, you just start thinking, oh yeah, there just have to be. With our Hubble telescope, we haven't found one Class M planet as far out as our Hubble telescope can see. There's not one Class M planet because there are millions of little dials, anthropic principles that have to occur in an exact sequence, an exact combination to make it work. For instance, anthropic constant number 1, oxygen level. It's 21% in the atmosphere. This makes life possible on Earth. If it's 25%, fires would erupt spontaneously. If it was 15%, we would suffocate. We got the atmospheric transparency, letting in the radiation versus too much, too little, wouldn't work. Moon to Earth gravitational interaction. Too far away, doesn't work. Too close, doesn't work. Carbon dioxide level. Too much, doesn't work. Not enough, doesn't work. Gravity. All of these things, all these dials are dialed just into what makes it work for human life and any life to exist. We haven't found one single cell organism on any other planet. We're dreaming to find one, just amoeba on Mars, and call that life. But then we won't call a fetus life. Science is weird, isn't it? Let's keep moving. We were talking about hypocrisy, weren't we? Were we talking about hypocrisy? Dawkins says, biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. But don't get me wrong, they weren't designed, but they appear to be designed. We could not fathom that it had actually been designed, because that would mean we would have to turn our eye to the face of God, and we might not get to be God anymore. If I was taking my kids to Mount Rushmore, I'd be like, wow, look at that, kids. Over centuries, the wind just blew just right, and it looks like, man, it looks like, well, you would call me an idiot, wouldn't you? You would say I was ignoring the obvious facts, that there was some designer, some artist, some person, some intelligence that had to create that creation. And if you look at the complexity, the irreducible complexity of the human cells, if you look at the irreducible complexity, even Darwin was terrified of the human eye. Just go look that up, Darwin, human eye. And he didn't even like peacocks because it looked like they had eyes. And he told somebody in a journal one time, he was like, it drives me crazy to think that there could be a designer and I might be wrong. So now we've talked about the biological side of things. It's irreducibly complex. The second thing we're looking at, which Carl Sagan said, oh, yeah, it's totally normal, is now we're looking at the fossil record. Darwin himself said, I don't think that it's actually in there, but given time, I'm sure we'll find it. But if we don't, then the most obvious and gravest objection can be used against my theory. He said, if they can't find this tree in the strata of the geological formations, then we're done. He said there's a problem with the fossil record, but if there's the missing link. Anybody ever heard of the missing link? It's like you got a monkey, and then you got the bigger monkey, and then you got the bigger monkey, and then you got the man, right? Well, we're missing like all those in between, right? And so every now and then you might meet a really hairy man and be like, the missing link, you know. But the rock strata should be filled with the remains, and that's why you need to go and watch is Genesis history, because you're going to see some top-level geologists that show you exactly where they are in the rock and where they're not. There should be a chain, Darwin said, there should be a chain of small biological modifications, ever so slightly changing all the way through the centuries to make this difference of phyla. The branching tree of Darwin's theory is not found anywhere in the fossil record. What we do find is what we call the Cambrian explosion. Anybody ever heard of the Cambrian explosion? Basically, if you were to equate the history of the world in 12 hours, right? Or, it would be like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. At 10 o'clock in 2 minutes, all of a sudden, boom, we got all of this. And so it's like, it looks like we're just seeing the tips of the tree, but maybe there's something down here somewhere. But in 2 minutes, it's almost like everything that was phyla existed. And it's still, a lot of it is still with us to this day. So what it looks more like is this. A bunch of grass, right? With individual roots. Instead of one connecting single-celled organism, it's almost like the dog was created. And then a cow was also created at the same time. And a monkey. And a man. But they are not connected here. But we do see interspecies adaptation. We don't see cross-species evolution. It's just not in there. It's just not in there. I think any scientist that actually looks objectively will see it's not in there. It's not in the fossil record. We see it in the Cambrian explosion. So Dr. David Belinsky of Discovery Institute estimated that the changes it would take to go from, like, say, a land mammal to just maybe a sea mammal, it would take 50,000 micro or morphological changes. Someone say morphological. It's going to take 50,000 morphological changes to get from here to here, just between one animal, right? Transition record does not show any of that anywhere, and I challenge anybody who's trying to produce it. It's not there. It's not there. I looked all day. If there is 50,000 changes needed to change from one species to the next, it would be seen in the fossil record. And Darwin answered the problem saying, one day we're going to find it. We'll have enough time. We'll excavate it. It's there. I'm sure it's there. Just have faith in me. And he said this, he who rejects these views on the nature of geological record will rightly reject the whole theory. Colin Patterson said this. He's the evolutionist. He is an evolutionist at the London Museum of Natural History. He says, I'm going to lay it on the line here. There's no such transitional record. There's no fossil that's transitional. I'm just laying it on the line. He's being honest. He's an honest scientist. David Ropp, director of the Museum of Natural History in the United States, said, we are about 120 years after Darwin, when he was quoted here, and we now have 250,000 fossil species, but the situation hasn't changed much. We have even fewer examples of evolutionary transition than we had in Darwin's time. The only way to make it make sense, though, is like something that's impossible. That thing is going to float. You say, no, it won't. Why? Because of gravity and all these kind of things. But if I tack a couple of billion years on it, now it could float, right? And everyone says, why not? It could float. Yeah, just tack a couple billion years on there. That makes it good. Scientist George Wald, Nobel Peace Prize winner, by the way, said, time is the hero. It will rescue us since we haven't seen it here. Time is the hero of our plot. What we regard as impossible on the basis of human experience is meaningless here. Given so much time, the impossible becomes possible. We can take something that is completely impossible, add 5 billion years to it, suddenly it's possible. That to me sounds like a lot of faith, maybe a little bit of magic. Sorry, it sounds a little snarky. I'm just trying to help you understand the complexity of what's going on here. They call it deep time. Someone say deep time. Deep time is this theory that billions and billions of years can make something that's scientifically impossible suddenly possible. So why is there any, let's go here. Ben Stein, I don't know if anybody's seen the movie or the documentary Expelled. Anybody see that? You need to go and watch it. Go watch the documentary Expelled. Ben Stein, dry eyes, clear eyes for dry eyes. That guy? Well, he goes around and he interviews a bunch of professors who had entertained the idea of intelligent design, and because they did, they got fired for it. He even talks to Dawkins, I believe, and a few other people. I think it's Dawkins. I need to go back and watch it again. It was? Okay. Thanks. And if you question these people, though, you are an idiot. They start getting mad. And if you present an alternative theory, you're ridiculed in the scientific community. And just sit down. You're stupid. No paper you ever publish will ever be put in our journal. Just recently, actually 2013, 14, a guy named Mark Armitage, he was a research scientist. He was on a dig, and he found soft tissue on the fossil of a triceratops horn. And he believed that the soft tissue gave proof that dinosaurs roamed the earth thousands of years ago, not millions of years ago, and he was instantly fired for it. His supervisor stormed he sued the school. He actually got several $100,000 out of the deal because, and you don't win a deal like that if it's not a good case. So he won that case, and in that case, he said his supervisor stormed into the lab and shouted, "We are not going to tolerate your religion in this department. Shut it down. We're going to follow the science wherever it leads, unless it leads to God. Then we got to shut it down because we can't have that. We can't have that. I know the heavens are proclaiming the glory of God, but we can't have that. We are our own God. We are a self-made man. We don't need a God. We don't need the opium for the masses. We're not weak-minded. We're not stupid. We are our own God." The only way that the theory of evolution, that something came from nothing, which is impossible, can be explained is through the theory of deep time. Everyone listens to these people because they're the experts. So I'm asking you this tonight. Fairy tales? Who's listening to fairy tales? I'll just leave that with you. 1 Corinthians 1:20, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has God not made foolishness the wisdom of the world? Verse 25, because the foolishness of God is wiser. If there was anything foolish of God, it's wiser than man, the top level man. And the weakness of God is stronger than man. So that's what's true, I believe. It's what's true. I don't think that I don't think there's any truth in this, and yet all of your textbooks are going to say it, and you're either just going to go along with it just so you can get an A and move on through. And if you ever say anything in class, everyone's going to look at you like you are stupid. You're going to be like, guys, it's not there. Irreducible complexity, and it's not in the fossil record. Somebody please answer my question without just getting mad and yelling and getting all upset. Just freaking talk to me and show me how this can be without using the theory of deep time, because it just doesn't work. Especially if we're finding soft tissue on triceratops bones. Come on. Anyway. Sorry, I'm totally nerding out up here. Kendall says something profound. Basically, what I want you to understand is you're not an idiot for believing in creationism. Now we figure out who the creationist is, but first we got to say, come on, just follow the freaking science. You'll see it. But Kendall says something profound here, something that we really need to listen to. He says, all I know is that Christians are the same as me. They're partying, and then they're in the pews on Sunday morning, and they say, I'm going to hell? What? He says, if I could meet just one real Christian, I might change my mind, but until then, I'm out. Whether Kendall is right or wrong, which I believe in the story is wrong, and Wingo is actually right, but there's a problem here. There's a problem here. What he's saying is, according to the scientific method, I haven't been able to observe any real evidence of God because the Christians he knows are hypocrites. That's the scientific method. Did you know you are the evidence of God? You are part of his creation that's pouring forth his praise. And when you see a bunch of people that are actually pretty sharp and with it, people worshiping this God that's invisible, you're like, oh, maybe there is something to this. You are the evidence. See, the scientific method is based on a collection of data through observation and experimentation. And they are going to throw things at you, the hypothesis that there is a God because you believe it. They're going to throw things at that to try to take out that hypothesis, but it's not because they're being mean. It's because they're observing and they're experimenting. They're trying to see if your life actually stands up, or will it fall when I throw something? Is it observable data? Is it just a hypothesis, or does it keep on sticking and maybe it turns into a theory? And if it always comes back, then maybe it could become a law. But when we fall, they say, I knew God wasn't real, therefore I can continue on being my own God. Through observation and experimentation, they're going to try to tick you off to see if Jesus is real. They're going to try to tick you off to see if God stands up inside of you. And they're going to try to see if you really love people. And they're going to watch to see if you really care about the widow and the orphan, or if you're more important, or if you're more concerned about getting to be the first in line, or be the cool kid, or to try to be on the inside of a circle and shut everybody else out. Or are you going to be scared of them because they're such sinners? Or they're testing you. They're throwing things at you to see the observable data. They will watch to see if you're going to live according to the words that the book that they have already read, and they probably know more than you do, if you live up to it. And when they see you booty dancing, it's not the other Christians that are judging you. I want you to hear me. Christians are pretty forgiving. I believe it. They are. They're like, man, come on, let's get you fixed up. It's not the Christians that are judging you. I think the most judgmental people are the people who are testing that scientific method. It's the people of the world that are looking for the evidence of a real God. And when they see you coming out of your dorm room with that girl in the morning, or they hear the sounds of your sex at night, or they see you womanizing every girl with two legs, and they say, God's not real. If he was real, then the Christians, it would be seen in the formation. And see, if Kendall could just see one Christian, it may be enough evidence of a real but invisible God. And the thing is, Wingo was doing so good. He was doing so good in that conversation. He didn't try to fight the guy. He didn't try to, all he did was clarify a few wrong views and correct a few things and keep the conversation going. But when he saw that Kendall was just looking for a fight, he backed off and he went to the respect factor. He's like, man, I respect you and I respect your opinions. Not just you, I respect your opinions too. He even understood and admitted that he could be wrong. Man, I could be wrong. So he wasn't a know-it-all, but, someone say but. Then his life did not back up what he was preaching, nullifying everything that just happened. 1 Corinthians 9:27 says, but I discipline my body, and I bring myself into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I find myself what? Disqualified. Titus says this, almost the same thing. They profess to know God, but in the works they deny him. In my daily life, I come to 2 Posts, but then in my daily life, you can't tell by my Snapchats that I'm a Christian. You can't tell by the way I talk to people that I'm a Christian. You can't tell by the way I help other people that I'm a Christian. They profess to know God, but in the works they deny him, being abominable, disobedient, and what? Disqualified for every good work. So on one side, we have what's right and what's real, which is God. And on the other side, we have this lie that many people are believing full on because the scientific community, the priests of the high council of the scientific community have said so, and therefore it is true, that there is no God. And yet what makes this gray in between here is not what's right and what's wrong. We already know what's right and what's wrong. The right answer versus wrong answer, it's not about that in this situation. What makes this episode gray is that Wingo is totally right, but because of his witness, he's completely disqualified. He's got no place to speak into Kendall anymore. He might have earned it over time, but now he has shut it down. See, the truth is offensive enough without us adding stupidity to it, amen? Romans 2:21 says, you therefore who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who preach that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who say, don't commit adultery, do you commit adultery? For the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, because they didn't see the observable data. Oh, that's just those Christian people. 2 Corinthians 2:15, for we are the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. We are the evidence To the one, we're the aroma of death. To the other, we are the aroma of life, leading to life. There was an ancient apostle named Irenaeus, and he said, the glory of God is man fully alive. The evidence of God is man fully alive. You are the evidence. You are the observable evidence of a risen Savior, or the detriment to that evidence.